And another great tip you have is to actually be a creator first before you be an entrepreneur. So why do you recommend that path?
Yeah, creator first, entrepreneur second is definitely kind of a theme. And it came out of just what I observed at Gumroad, which was I saw literally thousands of people that I would identify as entrepreneurs, as business owners, who never would have considered themselves such. They're like, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not. I make a couple $100,000 a year selling ebooks. Like that's not, I'm not an entrepreneur. And I'm like, what? You make more than some people that do call themselves
Uh,
like, yeah, it was just kind of funny. And what I noticed was to be a creator, you have to learn a lot of skills, right? It's a sort of a multifaceted sort of skill set. You have to learn how to write, communicate, market, maybe design, edit video or audio. Like there's all of these things you have to learn. And literally, basically, everything you need to be an entrepreneur, you kind of have to learn to just be a creator. But for some reason, creator, like just like I mentioned before, like people don't really identify with the word entrepreneur. They really identify with the word creator, right? You look at all the surveys of like, oh, 70% of kids want to be YouTubers or what have you, right? Which we'll see if that actually happens. Um, but they're clearly being pulled to that for a variety of reasons, right? So if I can use that as almost like the Trojan horse, right? Of like, hey, become a creator, learn all these skills, and then apply them, make money, do all that, build an audience, etc. You will be far more prepared to be an entrepreneur. And actually, like you may have already become one without you realizing it. And I think that's sort of really, really important. Like it's kind of like the difference between like writer and author, right? Like everyone's a writer. Not everyone considers themselves an author, right? An author, you have to have a published book or whatever like that feels to be. And so I just like, creator, to me, creator is just entrepreneur, right? It's just the same kind of word, even. Maybe it's just shorter. We were tired of saying entrepreneur, spelling it out or something. But it's really kind of the same, and I see it. They're both CEOs. They both run a brand and built that brand from scratch, have an audience or selling some product to them. So like a lot of it is the same. But yeah, I find it to be like incredibly compelling to people when I say, hey, you should be a creator, and everyone's like, yeah, I want to be a creator. Like so I'm like, okay, cool. Like if that's what you want to do, like great. Like let's start there. You know, and then once you feel like you have a solid base, then we can move on to step two, right? So that's kind of why I kind of came up with that kind of like create first, kind of entrepreneur second.
Yeah, that's such a great way of putting it. One is kind of like a rebranding, like kind of entrepreneur is kind of like, it's been overused or like too many people say, or still has that business, that old school business context. But if you say creator, it's like futuristic. It's like, you create for a living. And like you said, it's kind of like a Trojan horse. It's like something in the skies. And it also just sounds a lot more fun to be a creator than to be like entrepreneur in a sense. So that's a really great way of putting it.
Thank you. Yeah, and words matter. Like what I've noticed is like a lot of people want, like one of the hardest things to do is to get everyone to agree on something, right? Like that's one of the hard things to do about any movement. You have to kind of rally the troops somehow and get millions of people to decide this is the path forward. That's really, really, really hard. And you see this with like, crypto, I think had a hard time until NFTs and Web3, and now everyone's kind of like, oh, this is the term that everyone's kind of agreed upon, right? And it feels like it matters because it aligns everyone on kind of a common sort of mission that everyone is kind of getting. It's more clear, right? It's like, oh yeah, cool. If I want to be part of the Web3 movement, like here's a framework in order for me to do that. And Creator, I think, does a very similar way, which we've kind of taken all of these ideas around social media, around user generated content, and said, okay, what do we call this set of activities? So Gumroad was the third company that I know to ever use the word creator to talk about our users. It was, and I can tell you kind of the history because I was there, trying to figure out like what do we call our users. Like we literally didn't know because there were writers, there were authors, there were comedians, there were filmmakers, there were photographers. There was no word really to describe them. And what I found was, or what we found was, YouTube called them creators. They were the first company, I believe, and Kickstarter was the other company that we found that called their users creators. And it kind of makes sense, like in those two contexts. And we were the third. We were the first, and the first sort of where our primary function was just to help creators sell. digital content, which now has kind of become more popular, which is great. But yeah, it was literally because of, like, on our homepage, it used to show, like, we are for writers, comma, filmmakers, comma, photographers, all of these things. And it was kind of a cool design or whatever. But now there's a word, and you can just say creator, and everyone knows what that means roughly, right? Which is you create content for an audience on a variety of social media platforms. And then you might monetize via, either a SaaS product or digital content or premium membership or community or one of these, or advertising sponsors, et cetera, right? Like, and so that, yeah, it's great because it's like, cool, creator, got it, move on. Whereas, yeah, 10 years ago, it was not the case. I said, when we started using creators, people would ask us all the time, like, what is that? What's the difference between a creator and a creative, or a creator and an artist? Like what, like, and now no one asks that anymore.